The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Melody.
Hi everyone, I'm super excited to be here with you all. Thank you so much to the Junior for allowing me to be a part of this event as one of the panelists supporting you. So I want to share a little bit about my money story. What's interesting is that I'm actually an accountant by trade and by profession. And so I've always been relatively well with numbers and managing things from the corporate standpoint. But on the personal side, my personal finances were a complete wreck. So I was a caregiver to my mom at a very early age. And of course, we didn't come from the wealthiest background. So there were a lot of instances where sometimes we didn't have food to eat. There were a lot of instances where I had hand-me-downs. And so we didn't have the most robust, financially savvy kind of lifestyle. And I remember when I was able to start working, because I started working at the age of 14. And when I started working at 14, when I got my first paycheck, I told myself that I will never have one pair of shoes again. And what that conversation instilled in me was that it created a dysfunctional emotional relationship with money. And what I mean by that is it caused me to spend either on myself or on others so that I could feel better about myself or feel the love from others that I didn't have of my own self. So as I started to work, I started to earn my own income. I became a caregiver to my mom at a very early age. So I had financial responsibilities relatively early. And with that, it was always like a check to check kind of lifestyle. So I worked really hard. I was able to earn a lot of income. So I was a six-figure earner, but when I compared that to my bank statements, I had less than $10 in the bank. And I didn't have that aha moment until I was going through this phase of just looking at my financial life, looking at my goals, looking at how I wanted my new year to start out in 2016. And when I did that exercise, December 31st, 2015, comparing my bank statements to my last pay stub at the ending of the year, and I saw that I grossed six figures, but I had less than $10 in the bank. That caused me to really drill down to figure out where my money was going. And I realized that I was spending all of my earnings on debt payments. So for me, I had a really dysfunctional money relationship. I didn't realize how important it was to budget. I was very good on the corporate side, but it did not reflect the same on the personal side. So one of the things that I always like to share with folks and be transparent in my story is really letting people know that it's not about how much money you make, but instead it's about what you do with the money that you make. And depending on the relationships that you have with your finances, what you were brought up in, what you experienced in your life, that will 9 times out of 10 dictate how you navigate and how you operate in your finances. And it's either going to work for your benefit or it's not going to work for your benefit, which I realized up until January 2016. But at that point, I started my debt freedom journey and I really began to transform what money relationships look like for me. And it's been the best decision I could have ever made for my life. Yeah, and not just the proper place, but also more so about the relationship. So we really have to tap into what is driving the decisions that we make in our finances. And a lot of times we mask the fact that maybe the way that we were brought up, maybe sometimes the experiences that we may have had, maybe some of the responsibilities that we may have had at an early age, and we don't really may not necessarily have the knowledge to know what to do with it. So like I said, for an example, I had an accountant background. So I went to school for accounting. I got an MBA in financial management. I have all of these corporate educational skill sets, but I didn't understand how to apply the basics of that in my personal finances. So I didn't budget. I spent every dollar that I earned. Anything that I did try to save, I ended up pulling it out immediately. There were also some fears that were instilled in me from my family growing up about not putting your money in the stock market, not investing. So it took me years to actually start to understand where to place my money, where to invest, how to invest. So initially getting over that fear of not wanting to make this financial move and possibly lose everything that I'm putting in there. So it was about me understanding that you have to not only be diverse in where you put your money, but you have to be smart in where you put your money, and you have to be emotionally intelligent to be able to manage the financial decisions that you're planning to make around your money. So I had to start with the emotional side, getting over any of the financial pain that I had endured growing up, releasing some of those negative conversations or those fearful conversations that may have been instilled in me by my family members, and learning a new tune. That's a very good question, and I definitely believe that protection is available across the board, regardless of what status you are in terms of cohabitating. So I'm assuming that means that you're not necessarily married at this point, but you could be either working towards those lines to being married, maybe engaged, or just in a dating relationship. I know one of the things for me that I had to learn after the fact, of course, not in my dating relationships, which I wish I knew, but I would say that definitely to protect yourself, you really want to be aware of where your money is being placed, managing your money yourself, having effective budgets, and just being very mindful about the partner who you are cohabitating with and being clear on what the expectations are and what the goals are. I know from my personal experience, I would always say that I probably would, and I'm going to be strong when I say the word never, but I will probably never do that again in terms of mixing resources or having joint accounts or doing any of that if the person is not my spouse. So from personal experience, one of the things that I would just share is to be mindful of that. If you're cohabitating with someone and you're just dating, or you're not necessarily married, like legally married, that's something that you really want to be careful about and ensure that whatever resources you have, that you're able to manage them well, you keep your expenses as low as possible, and then you have clear communication between you and whoever the person is that you are cohabitating with. So I hope that helped a little bit. And if I may add, I wanted to also share that there's additional resources as well outside of tax advisors and accountants. Of course, you will want those as well. But if you want to be able to have more help with getting clear around any decisions that you probably want to be able to think through financially, a financial counselor could also help as well. So there are programs that I'm sure nonprofit organizations, depending on where you live, there may be programs that you could be eligible for to receive either free financial counseling or a relatively reduced price financial coaching and counseling as well. So I just wanted to share that as an additional resource. I love your question, so thank you so much for asking that. I literally smiled as you were speaking. So I initially had an opening question because I was wondering, is it you and your significant other that both have debt? Can you clarify that just so I can be sure? That there is hope and there is absolutely a strategy and a way for you to get out of it. So I didn't get to share a little bit about my story, but I was in over $365,000 worth of debt when I did this initial exercise to compare my income to my bank statement. And when I did that and I realized that all of my money was going to debt payments, I had to combine and look at everything that I owed. So for you, if you know that your student loans take up a majority of your debt and that's what you want to tackle, that's what you want to focus on, there's definitely a will and there is a way. 9 times out of 10, the student loans that you have are going to be multiple loans within the loan. So you want to look at it one step at a time. So as of December 31st, 2021, I've paid off $355,150.42 of debt alone while caregiving for my mom, managing 2 households. So if I can do it on the salary that I'm earning, I'm most certainly sure that you can do it on the salary that you're earning. And since you have an advantage whereby if you all are either sharing the rent, splitting the rent, you really want to get pinpoint needle as low as you can, as deep as you can inside of your budget. And when you begin to look at your student loans, look at them from an individual standpoint. So go inside of your student loan account, list out all of the individual installment loans that you have within that student loan. If you want to be strategic, you can look at the interest rates that's associated with each of those individual loans inside of your student loans and tackle the one that more than likely has the highest balance, meaning the balance of it right now is greater than the original disbursement that was made at the time that you had the disbursement to pay for whatever that semester was. So just take it one at a time, get strict on your budget. I can't encourage that enough. Really pay attention to how you're spending your money, where your money is going, and make sure that you're also paying yourself first. So putting some money to the side so that your reserves can continue to grow, but utilize your budget as much as possible to focus on one debt at a time. So I hope that answered your question. That helps.
The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Meloni. The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia